America, land of the free. And God is present right here within me.
New music from Mr. Jah Wobble there. Brief History of Now is the album, and that's the title cut. Also happens that the man is standing by on Zoom for yet another chat. Mr. John Wardle, Jah Wobble, welcome once again to Life Elsewhere.
Hello, Norman. Nice to be here, mate.
Nice to see you, my friend. The last time we spoke, we talked about getting together again and having a chat. In the meantime, I've been following your travels. It seems to me like you've been all around the world and then back again. Am I right?
Yeah, America. Yeah, it was a very hectic time. You know, we were touring in Britain, went off to Ireland, to the north and the south, and then I went over to LA, and then the boy got married in between those trips, and then my older boy. Then I went off with my two sons to Greece. We did the music for a play out there, like an open air play. That was amazing.
Very cool.
And then in between all that, I was still doing Tuned In, the community thing that I do in South London.
Yeah.
So it's been it was a very intense sort of summer, and it never really stops because I manage myself. And so every day, you know, you got a lot of kind of organising to do if it's Tuned In or the band, dealing with, you know, talking to the agent about various gig proposals and gig routing, and you know, and there's so many different ways people can communicate with you now. So, you know, you get a lot of stuff through WhatsApp. You know what I mean? You got WhatsApp going, your emails going, and it's just it's quite intense a lot of the time, actually. And as I say, I manage myself. I can't see a way out of that because the 20% I save by not having a manager is your kind of profit margin on the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? So that's how it is, you know.
There's another aspect to it, which I'm just going to presume, John, that you managing yourself is not just because of the 20%. It's also because maybe you've had your fill of managers over the years, or maybe you just feel that you can do a much better job.
Well, yeah, do you know what? I came into the business, obviously, with public image. The business was handled terribly. It was really bad, in my view, for terrible. And I think, and other people's view, actually, was involved in it as well. It was very, very poor. And that, you know, once bitten, twice shy, you know. So I was very kind of careful after that. Very much kind of show me the money, you know. Maybe too much, you know. You don't have enough of a trusting sort of a attitude, you know, maybe. So as much as you could have, you know. But then I met one or two good people along the way, and Hildegard Schmidt, who's the can manager. After I left Peel, I started working with Holger and Jackie from Can.
Yeah.
And she taught me a lot, you know, that we have a saying that we get the maximum from the minimum. So you just exploit everything to the max in terms of, you know, terms. And she was, you know, really kind of taught me a lot. And she represented those recordings then, you know, at that time. And that kind of, you know, I learned one or two things. So I kind of learned to keep my guard up. I brought a guy in who did an okay job when basically I brought him in as just to be a buffer. This was in the 90s. I was going through a purple patch, and I brought him in because the record company at the time were wearing me out. I think the guy running it had read a book on Tamla Motown and decided he wanted to try and be like Berry Gordy or something and get everyone to clock up in or off. That ain't going to work with me. I'm going to turn up. I'm going to be working after lunchtime, and I'm going to work through into the evening. You know, that's how I was then, you know. That was my body clock sort of thing. I'm not going to justify why I'm not coming in at 9 a.m. to you. You know, I'm going to work, and I'm going to be prolific, in fact, you know. So I brought a guy in as a sort of buffer, and it kind of worked to an extent. And he brought some enthusiasm to it, but that lasted just a few years. And then I, you know, tried one other person actually in regards to running my label. And that really didn't work out, you know, and it's just like, right, it's just easier if you do it yourself. And of course, over this intervening time, I've got an iPhone in my hand. And of course, the technology is not all bad. So you can respond to people, you know, you can give people answers. Half the time you had a manager, but you didn't have the communications you have now. So you needed someone sitting in an office fielding these questions who know what to say and all that. And now, you know, for me, you know, the main thing's to do shows and get records out. It's not rocket science, you know.
Yes.
And by doing good stuff, rather than having concerted campaigns and making very smart moves along the way, you end up kind of I move it in a way at the speed of a glacier. So when I've done my own recordings, like with 30 Hertz record label, 30 Hertz Records, you just releasing lots of stuff without promotion. It's just the committed people are generally picking up on it, but you're always releasing stuff. And so you're just always moving forward like a glacier. So it's a very slow movement forward, but it's a very, very powerful movement forward, if you know what I mean, you know. And so there's this thing, there's this glacier just moving, just edging forward all the time. You're releasing this stuff. So something I do today might not bear immediate results, but will come good in 15 years or something, you know. So that's it. That's how I've just kind of worked. And, you know, unless you can get somebody who really understands your stuff and wants to devote themselves to you, you know, and that might happen one day, you know, that probably sounds more like a patron, you know, you know, who wants to really help you. And I'm always open to offers there, you know, but at the moment, everything seems to work.
Do you get people approaching you and saying, I'd like to manage you?
Yeah, it's okay. Not as much now because I think it's the toughest game, but I have done in the past. And, you know, a lot of the time, you know, there's, you know, just isn't probably anything special enough about them. You know, they're not going to have an inspired idea, you know, particularly. And that's the thing you want. There were people that asked to manage me probably back in the 90s. I could have gone with that would have done a good job, to be fair. But, you know, I think as well with that whole scene of alpha males, you know, you're an alpha male when you're careful about the other alpha males that, you know, you know, in case they try and, you know, start trying to dominate you and making you go down a certain path you don't want to go down or whatever, you know. But I know I've frustrated a few probably quite well-meaning record company executives back in the day because they really want you they want you to be commercially successful and they think they know how you can achieve that. Often I just found the ideas were probably a little bit crass and painting by numbers. And the one thing I've done, I've had a long walk with my son, elder boy, who's turned into a really good player. He's got an album. My two boys have got an album coming out in.
We got to check that out. Yeah.
Oh, it's good. Yeah, I'll send you.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll send you the album later on. And it's good. I'm playing on it. They've done a really good job. I have to bite my tongue. You don't do it like that, you know, like because it's their business, you know. And they've done a good job, to be fair, you know. I had a long walk with my elder boy up by the Thames up to Putney. It was really hot yesterday. It's like Florida kind of humidity and heat. You know? Oh, man, it was hot. I mean, really humid up. I'm back up north today. It's humid. But we had a really good walk and you know, he picks me brains a bit. He's turned into a proper player. He's really got a reputation now. He's got a little bit of Jackie Libbers about him with the drums. He really grows. Yeah, he's a good drummer. He's good lad. He's quiet. He's a good boxer as well. You know, does a bit of boxing. And we were talking, and you know, he talked to me about the whole thing of commerciality. And I just said to him, you know, for me, the basis was always just believing in the sound, and that encompasses a lot. It's not just the sonics, you know, the sound, the shape of the music, the philosophy of the music, you know, the sound. And so you keep working on your sound, and I'm still working on my sound. You know, and that's the thing you keep coming back to. And if you're true to that, everything else will take care of itself.
Which
it's
is
a bit like the
interesting.
AA. It's a bit like the AA thing.
Yeah.
Stay sober, stay awake, one drink, one day at a time. Everything else will come good. You know.
You said something in just way back there. You said you used the word prolific, and I think if there's one thing that you can certainly say about Jah Wobble, is that you are certainly prolific. You've put out a lot of albums and singles and gosh knows what else over the years. Has it been for you, John, because you've been self-managed for so long, it's been easier to do that? Or how's that works for you, just putting out so much?
Oh yeah, you know, if you had managers and you know you got proper major deals, it wouldn't work because their attitude is you're competing against yourself with records.
Yeah.
So they want you, and I understand what they're saying. It's kind of classic marketing technique, you know. Um, you know, but the thing is, I wasn't really going for that. I was going for me, for the sound, you know, and to talk, you know, about, well, don't release too many records because you're competing against yourself. Well, that's like saying to Picasso, you don't want to do too many paintings, mate. You know, you're going to
Yeah.
compete against
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure even back in the day with painters, even back to painters from earlier times, you know, from the, you know, the Impressionists or whatever, or Turner, you know, people like Turner, they probably knew you didn't bring out two major paintings in the same week. You'd stagger it a bit, I'm sure, you know.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you have to bear that in mind. But generally, I was just happy just to keep releasing and let the world let the world catch up with what I'm doing, you know.
Let
And if you had a man, if you the more in that typical old school structure, you know, the less likely they're going to like you being prolific, you know.
let's talk about two releases. One we started with. I'm curious about this album, this one, Brief History of Now. Got two, no, three videos I think I've seen from this, which is not your kind of usual thing that you do, John, to do videos, but at the same time, it seems very pertinent to what you're doing here. But just give me a sort of a little overview about this album.
Well, I should be so lucky to get free videos. So they flew me to Cleopatra Records
Yeah,
and made free videos and took me for $500 steak dinners in steak and lobster dinners in Malibu. I mean, they're really nice.
not
Really
bad.
look,
Yeah,
and it's a real elegant and largesse. They don't need to do it. Really tells you something. So they've become friends of mine, and you know, Brian and Matt especially are really, you know, have been really good with me. Um, and the last proper videos I done were way back in the 90s.
yes,
They were proper videos with some kind of budget, you know, lots of post production and all that. And so it was wonderful. The album it's a very different album to, as you say, to what I've done. And the reason is because the last time I was with a company that you felt could deal with a proper deep record but has a crossover potential was Ireland Records.
yes,
So for me,
yes,
so I'm talking 30 years ago or something, you know,
right.
more, you know. So I'm with Cleopatra. I've done Metal Box Rebuilt. They say, would you be into doing a new album? And the first thing I think is fantastic. I'm really do something serious. Let's do something. I'd like to go back and cover the post-punk area, you know, that kind of post-punk vibe. I'd like to do something with that kind of style, you know, that kind of ethos. I work a lot with John Klein. We've become very friendly. We do the community thing together in South London, and he's become a good mate of mine. So at the time,
Guitarist
yeah,
John Klein. Yeah, yeah,
John Klein. So I can't talk about Brief History now without him. I did it with him. He
yeah,
co-produced it.
yes,
So when Cleopatra had initially said to me, "Hi, would you be interested in doing a new version of Metal Box for us, like in a dub style?" I was like, "Yes, I'd like to do that. I'd like to, in fact, I'd like to reimagine it actually." And I think, oh, wow, you know, that's a quick decision. And the reason was I was already had got I didn't want to talk about Pill. I certainly didn't want to play Pill numbers for many years.
yes,
And then last decade or so, I started to want to do it. So I started bringing it into my set, you know, as well as doing old Jah. I didn't even want to do old Jah Wobble things for a while, but I started doing some of the older stuff and becoming more like God and all that, and actually having a sort of Jah Wobble canon going back to doing the Pill stuff as well. And I was reimagining some of the Pill stuff, getting George, my keyboard player, to do certain kinds of string parts on it and one thing and the other. So when they asked me, would you do it straight away? I'm like, yes, because I've already started to kind of experiment with them on stage. And now I can really go the whole hog. And as I said to him, you're asking me to do this when I happen to be working remotely because it was lockdown with the best guy in the world to play Keith Levine's guitar parts and add to them. John Klein is the post-punk guy, guitarist.
Yes.
He's amazing, you know, for that style. He really is. He really, really understands it. He's a bit of a music historian. In fact, he knows all the bands and all the styles and all the little ways you get certain sounds. He's a connoisseur of guitar, especially that kind of, you know, that kind of guitar. So I'm like, right, this is really, I can really have some fun here. I can collaborate with John. I can push the boat out lyrically. I can really start to write some lyrics now again, and I can push the boat out with the singing and the vocal performance, because I'm in safe hands and we can really do something, you know, and truly, this is a great opportunity to make a great record. At that time, I didn't know there'd be videos as well to back it up. So it's been absolutely wonderful, you know. And you could just have, it's just been a huge amount of fun, you know. One or two people, like with Last Exit, said, oh, yeah, you're slagging America off. And I'm not, actually. It's actually using America as the epitome of the West. But it's not saying, you know, oh, look at this, it's awful. And, you know, you know, I'm really critical of this. It's like, this is just how it is, this incredible, dizzying energy and movement. You know what I mean?
Yes, you know, John,
so
my takeaway, my first takeaway in listening to the album was that I didn't think you were pointing fingers at America. I thought, to me, it came across that you were pointing fingers at society. You were giving your opinions about what's going on in the world right now, hence the title.
Yeah, but and the best way to do it is snapshots.
Yes.
Because that's how we get the world now. It's like via TikTok, or I'm addicted to YouTube Shorts. Just, you know, sweet little kind of dog, mad dog, or monkey kind of, you know, monkeys kind of. So one today, just now, the last thing, monkeys having a spa day, and all these monkeys obviously in some court, and they just look like people. It's just like weird, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like dopamine, you know, it's like a dopamine thing, you know. You're looking at that, or, you know, mad little football clips or whatever. It's just one hit after the other, and it's just hits the dopamine. And that's really, so I mean, that Last Exit is about dopamine, actually, really, like bang, 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 you know, sugar rushes and pictures of pizza and this, you know, bang, 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 bang. It's dopamine, you know, and it's just how we kind of live now. And I'm actually saying, wow, this is so exciting. It's really exciting. So I'm not at all, oh, I'm going to point a finger at you, America. How dare, you know, I'm actually, oh, this is just fucking mad, you know, because I have a problem with pizza. I want lots of pizza, you know, and I want lots of dopamine, and I want lots of sugar, and, you know, I don't booze anymore, but, you know, you want lots of fun, you know.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, that was just part of this exciting kind of record, you know.
You know what comes across, John, in the album and the songs, and particularly the title cut, and then I am. Your lyric writing, it seems very deliberate on your part. I mean, I was very surprised, and it sounds to me like you thoroughly enjoyed doing what you're doing.
Oh, loved it. Well, I am it's at the very beginning. It's a very basic spiritual, you know. I am, you know, I am is the name of God, or, you know, you know, there is that Sanskrit. I am that am I, but actually, I am. That's it. Because I am before I'm this, before I'm that. I am. So I am pure awareness, you know, and that's the presence. Now, you know, a lot of Buddhists say, whoa, don't solidify that. You're making a soul out of awareness, and, you know, whatever, fair enough. Yeah. But it's nice big, we all know what it is to be, I'm aware. Like I was when I was a baby, like I was at 21 years of age, like I was last Wednesday at 2:77 p.m. At 2:22 p.m. How I was 5 minutes ago, how I was 2 seconds ago. That's the thing, the unchanging, not permanent, but the unchanging thing in the ever changing, you know, the stillness in the movement, you know. And sometimes, you know, when you've got in that vibe of pure being, like when you're going, you know, you're in Tesco's or something, you know, some everyday event turns into a beautiful, trippy, weird thing, you know. And so, yeah, it's heartfelt, you know. So that's, yet again, that's another track. So that's what that track's about. You know?
If you're just joining us, my guest is John Wardle, better known to all as Mr. Jah Wobble. I'm so thrilled to have you back on the program, man. It's really, it's such a pleasure. It really is.
Let's have a chat like this, Norman. It's lovely. Yeah.
Something which I've been reluctant to talk about with you, and you did bring it up. And when the album Metal Box Rebuilt in Dub came out, I thought, do I approach this with John or not? Because I am aware of your kind of not particularly happy state with the other John. And I just wondered whether that's something we can talk about or what. The album itself, I've got to tell you this. I was playing it in my car it was on Sunday, I think it was, and my son was back in town from college. And we put the roof down. You know, you can open up the roof on your car, and he's like, because he loves to do that, and have the air blowing in. And I had the album Metal Box in Dub Rebuilt playing really loud in the car, and my son said to me, "Dad, these beats are incredible," because he's into hip hop, you know. So he's like, "Dad, this is absolutely effing amazing. This is amazing." He's heard Metal Box, the original, but way back when. He's only 21. So what is, you know, so, but I just wanted to throw that out and let you know about that. So, but
that's do you know what? I love hearing that. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting back to talking about Pill and talking about making this album and talking about referencing John, the other John, is this an area you want to go into, or just because we just
no, I've got no. Hey, look, I've got absolutely no axe to grind at all.
Okay.
My view with John Lydon, Johnny Rotten, in regard to Metal Box, was so some of the original album was instrumental, as in obviously Rebuilt in Dub is.
Yes.
Some of the most exciting parts of the original recording of Metal Boxes were when John would come in to do his lyrics, because just for a time there with John, from when just before the Pistols started, or as the Pistols started, say 75 through to, I'd say, sort of 81-ish.
Yeah.
He was really, for that few years, he was really iconic. You know, he was really special. Quite an awkward, sometimes horrible person. You know, it's like, hey, was I ever horrible at that time? You know, you know, in a different way, you know, but he really was charismatic, and I don't think enough is made of his lyrics actually from that time, because for me, I always say to people, they're not lyrics. It feels stupid to call them lyrics. They're like prose. They're like Samuel Beckett or something. So when he'd come in and do something like The Suit or that, you know, it's like, for me, it's like listening to Harold Pinter sort of, you know, lines or something. It's like I could play. No, certainly trying to Samuel Beckett, maybe because the Irish thing and all that. It's all, you know, so a lot of those, it was just amazing. And obviously just made a really great record. So for a while there, you know, he was writing those great lyrics. He was very sort of important, you know, culturally. He was an incredibly important person and made a great big impact, you know, and it got me involved with, you know, God, it sounds so sort of, you know, cheap to, you know, got me involved with professional music. But, you know, you started at a little make your living from Plan B, which was wonderful. Got me playing it, opened up a whole vista.
Yes.
I think he changed over the years, and people change in various ways, and you know, that was then, and that was the time I knew him, and that's good. You know, I've met him a couple of times sort of since then, and what, you know, it is what it is. You know, I didn't want to do you know, I didn't like anything to do with the Reformation appeal. You know, that invested and happened. You know, it was just, to me, it wasn't really Peel somehow. You know, and the business side of it wasn't great for me. You know, it was just not enough. And I'm not being funny. You know, with something like that, a lot of money's generated. So you know, the kind of money I was offered was way short of what I felt you should be offered. And you're obviously not going to be cut into merch. either. And you think,
Yes.
just, well, I'm a founder member of this, John, you know, and obviously for me, the business wasn't good back then. And so this is a chance you could just put it right, you know, but okay, that's one, you know, it's one aspect to it. The other aspect was for me that the way you do that, okay, you might call it straight legacy act to start with.
Yes.
You do your best album. I've got nothing against that. So you should go out and do just two things. You do Metal Box, maybe you even re-record it, you know, as well, which not many people would do. You said, well, we're going to have the confidence to record it.
Yes.
To re-record it and make something kind of different for this age now. To have the guts to do that, you know, maybe. But the other thing, which I've just thought of, by the way, it's not like that was a plan, but that's something, the kind of thing I'd think of. But whatever, you go out and you perform it really well, hopefully with original people, and then you have new stuff. You do new stuff that really stands up. You know, that would have been my plan. You know, so then you do new stuff. So you maybe do 2 sets, and you have this new stuff that you just really, really good as well, you know.
Yeah.
But you know what? It didn't happen. And you know what? It doesn't matter, because, you know, people have different views. He's fully entitled to, you know, kind of go and do what you want to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, it's fine, you know. So that was the reasons I didn't do it. And which are pretty solid, you know, pretty kind of all encompassing, and it's fine. Does it change anything? No, it doesn't change anything, because Metal, as in terms of the original record, was so good, and it was a wonderful thing. And you know, what's it that saying, that the candle that burns twice as bright burns half as long, or something? You know.
Yes. Yeah.
It really, I was only in Peel for 2 years, I think, 78 to 1980.
Right.
Over 2 years. But Metal Box was so special. And I think by then, you know, John, for me, he wasn't going to write lyrics like that again. You know, that's not to say, oh, everything he did after that's from, it's not that, because actually I thought that album Rise that he did with Bill Laswell was really good.
Oh, right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that for me, it was the last thing I ever heard of him doing that I thought was a good record. It was a smart record, because Bill, you know, talking of Alpha Males, and you got an Alpha Male, and you get these other Alpha Male guys, like I think Ginger Baker and people, and I think Sakamoto.
Yeah.
And you and it stands up, you know. I mean, it's a good tune. You know, Bill's a good producer, you know. So that was the last. So I'm not saying, you know, oh, that was I'm definitely not saying that was a lot, you know. He couldn't do it. It was just that from then on, it's no good or something. What I'm saying, at that time, it was it caught a certain thing. It was wonderful, you know. These kind of Samuel Beckett sort of lyrics at that time, you know. He looked great, and you know, was all good. Levine was, as we know, he had sort of issues of one kind and another, and he was just about spent. I don't think he ever made a new guitar part similar to the classic lines like Pop Tones, Public Image, the single.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, so 2 of these things were actually pre Metal Box, but God, what's the bloody theme from the first album?
Theme, yes, yeah.
Well, to me, that guitar on that is just amazing, you know, and you can't really separate the first album from Metal Box, you know. So, but so, you know, John reached a certain point there as a you know, for me, as a not, I'm not even going to say lyricist, you know, and Keith reached a certain point as a guitarist, and I don't think for me they ever went kind of back on that, you know. Didn't kind of, yeah, that was it. That was the I'm not going to say the pinnacle, because everyone's, you know, knows what people go on to do, you know, but of a certain kind, it was a certain magic that was there, that was captured, you know, at that point. And I think at the time, you kind of feeling, there was a feeling for me that I probably couldn't articulate at the time, that it's like, you know, I want out of this. I don't really like the atmosphere around this at all, but it's kind of, I realised, you know, with Keith, certainly you just felt there was, for me, a lack of energy at times. You know, it was so when we should have been doing shows, we weren't. It was too much effort somehow. So I think I only did 18 shows or something with Pill. I might be wrong, but it wasn't that many.
It wasn't that many, right? Yeah.
No, I bet you it was under 20. Maybe it was a bit over, but I don't think so. I think it was under 20 shows. It was a ridiculously few, and I found it very frustrating. We'd be off to do a TV show and play, and it'd be cancelled, you know, all that kind of stuff, you know, for various reasons. And so, you know, we just weren't, and I felt even with Metal Box, I'm having to initiate a lot of it, you know. I'm going down to Gerrard Street and recording backing tracks and then taking them to the studio, to the Manor, you know, where we were recording.
Yeah, right, yeah.
You know, where we were doing it. But I preferred the bass sound at Gooseberry Studios, actually, you know, and I preferred the engineers at those studios. So I would capture a certain sound there, take it up, as with the Suit, you know. So that's kind of, so at the end of it, you know, and I think obviously it's very easy to say this in retrospect. It's like, well, that's great, it's perfect. You've sort of done this great work and then go. You don't sully it, you know, in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Don't sully it. Don't, you know, that's fantastic. Easy to say in retrospect, but you know, I don't think we would have, even if I'd stayed, I don't think we would have made a record as good as that. I suppose that's what I'm struggling to come out with, that sentence, you know. So,
well, John, I've got to say, I was, as you know, I was reluctant to talk about this and go into this, but I've got to compliment you on your generosity in everything that you've said, because I can feel that it's coming from within you. It's you've thought about this, you've thought about working with John, you thought about those years, and clearly it means a great deal to you. It means just a lot to you. Very, very, very quickly.
By the way, Norman, I probably haven't paid enough heed to Levine, who was the worst person in the world. And as I said when I done a eulogy, I don't how I never punched him in the head. I do not know, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But what a sound he had.
Yes.
And also, I'm in a band with this guy. He's tuning me up to start with, because I didn't really know how to. It was easier for Keith to do it, going, you know, how to tune the bass for me before rehearsals and all that. I don't think you even really had tuners much in them days that I can recall.
Yes,
you know, maybe, but I can't remember that. He was my tuner, you know. But he would get on the drums and play drums, and it encouraged me to kind of to do that as well. And I was already thinking in a very abstract way about music, you know, and bands and everything. And so I seemed that it kind of encouraged me, you know. So these were, you know, it's funny. I could at times see them with these two I was in a band with the two worst people in the world, you know, but actually they let me as a novice bass player do my lines and not interfere.
Yes.
Yeah. And in fact, say, look, that's brilliant, you know. So in the ways that mattered, I really developed. So that was fine, you know. So, you know, and then people become what they become. And look, the stuff with John, I know he receives criticism. I know I think, you know, he was a bit of a Trump fan, you know, I believe, and, you know, and pro-Brexit, I think, as well, you know. But hey, you know, you can criticise it, but that's most of my family, you know, I'm afraid to say, pro-Brexit, and a lot of my old mates, you know, not all of them, but most, you know, pro-Brexit. You know, to me, it was a ridiculous decision, and pro-Trump, you know, and to me, you know, there is an argument with politics now to say, well, what choices are there, you know?
Right, yeah.
You know, and a lot of these arguments are complex. I did talk in my book about both sides of the Atlantic blue-collar disaffection, you know, because certainly in this country, I was classic kind of Labour voter, Labour guy. And suddenly Labour didn't, you know, the last Labour leader was John Smith. And he died, unfortunately. You know, why is it always the bloody good ones? And we ended up with New Labour, when to me, New Labour was just a sort of segue of the choice. They weren't all bad. I didn't vote for them, but they weren't all bad. Some of the welfare, you know, people forget how terrible the NHS was for a while in the 90s. It was awful. And they get to grips with that, to be fair. A lot of the welfare reforms, you know, they put money into the arts and all that. So it wasn't all bad. Iraq War was daft, not thought through, at all.